Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Season 2 of Existential Side-Quests. I'm Jenna.
I'm Kimber.
And today, for our first episode back, we are going to be talking about cardinal energy. Now, we wanted to start the season off talking about the different modes because a lot of people are familiar with elements, the different, fire, earth, air, and water. But modes add another layer onto things. So when we're talking about cardinal energy, we're talking about the beginning of cycles, initiating cycles, coming into things. The three modes are cardinal, fixed, and mutable. And sometimes it's helpful to think about them as like a life cycle. So cardinal initiating, fixed in the state of being or living, and then mutable is that release at the end of the cycle.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like we don't talk about modes as much as we talk about signs and elements. And so just to kind of like clarify, signs, there's 12 different signs, and then there's elements. We have like fire, air, earth, water, and then there are the three modes. So there's 4 signs in each of the modes, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
so just whenever we're talking about modes, sometimes it's easy to kind of get confused with that. Oh, I'm thinking about elements, but we're talking specifically about like how are we moving, how are we expressing our energy, how are we carrying ourselves. So it's not the same as signs, which really give us our agendas and how we like go through life and like what we're here to do and the strategies we use. They're really just like another little filter on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Similar to signs, there's like this potentially an emphasis of one type of mode in your chart, whether you're cardinal dominant, fixed dominant, or mutable dominant.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And do we want to share our dominance? Because we think that might play a role in how we show up in these episodes, right?
Yeah, definitely. I actually had to look it up because my guess was not that I was cardinal dominant, although it does ring a bell. I am cardinal dominant. So this episode's about me.
Yes. I'm fixed dominant. I'm kind of tied. I'm fixed and cardinal dominant. They're like 5% apart. How about before we get started and jumping into all about cardinal, how about we kind of name the different signs that are in each mode? So when we're saying cardinal signs, we're talking about Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. Can we just name the fixed and mutable too?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So fixed, you want to move one over from each of these signs. So we're talking about Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius when we're talking fixed. Do you want to do mutable?
Mm-hmm. Okay, mutable. We have Gemini, Virgo. I don't know why I'm like Sagittarius and Pisces.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, because we want to do it in the right order. And so I'm like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
if you have any planets, and you can also consider your angles in cardinal signs, we'd love to hear in the chat. Just shout out which planets do you have in the cardinal signs.
And yeah, if you have like your ascendant in a cardinal sign, that's super important. I'm an Aries ascendant, which Aries is a cardinal sign that contributes to my cardinal dominance. Also, when we say planets, we are including the luminaries, the sun and the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Really important placements as well.
Yeah. Hi, Camille.
Thanks for being here, Camille. That's awesome. So, do you want to start with Aries? We could just dive right in.
Sure. I think, well, what do the cardinal signs all have in common? Like, so we have Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, and they're all very different. So you just want to jump into Aries?
Nope, let's go with all of them have in common.
Okay. Well, because I think it's just, we know that they're like initiators.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think of the word cardinal, I think of compass directions. And so I feel like that really connects to what cardinal signs are all about because they're moving. They're like picking a direction and they're going forward, or they're trying to forge ahead, which is our title.
Yep. I remember hearing once that Aries in particular, but this is very cardinal energy. It's go, ready, set. So it's almost like just to act, just to do the thing. Do the thing that element wants to do, whether it's fire with Aries, water with Cancer, air with Libra, or earth with Capricorn.
Yep. So they just do something, they're initiating, they're starting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think now we should go into each of the signs because they still have their own goals and intentions, even though they're all cardinal and wanting to get started. So with Aries, what are they trying to initiate?
Well, Aries is all about action. It can be the archetype of the warrior. It can be like the leader, the person who's kind of more gung ho than the rest of the group, ready to fight. They can also be really daring. That comes with the whole, like, I'll just go and do it. So the daredevil that goes first and things, or the person who's willing to like take that heroic action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're like, they can take a stand, they can take a risk.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
whether, yeah, it's for what they want.
Mhm.
Not, and it's not necessarily that it's a self-focus, but it's very self-led.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And what can happen too is when Aries kind of spills over into like, well, that was kind of not thinking at all. You just went for it. We can spill over and kind of to the lower archetypes where you seem a little bit reckless, or maybe you're kind of a walk
Impulsive.
impulsive. Yes. The walking emergency, the person who kind of
Mm-hmm.
like can't get out of their own way because they're so go, go, go.
Yeah. No, I
There's
think,
also,
oh, sorry,
oh,
keep going. Keep
I was
going.
just thinking the negative expression of an underexpressed Aries too, when you don't take that initiative, when you don't find that balance within yourself to use that cardinal energy in exactly the right way. When you underexpress, instead of coming across as reckless or hot-headed, you can come across as kind of like victimhood, like a victim mentality, like someone who's feels like everything's coming onto them rather than embodying that Aries energy and moving forward themselves.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the word balance because I think we give balance to Libra and the scales a lot, but I really see balance as a theme with all the cardinal signs and that we want to strike it and that it can be difficult to strike that balance because they do want to go before, and maybe we need to look both ways or we need to be able to go but also slow down and be able to keep that momentum that we started with,
Mhm.
which is why I think cardinal signs get a bad rap of a limit or a challenge would be staying the course and following through.
Mhm.
But I think some of that comes to when we're not striking that balance.
For sure. And I think that also the fact that the cardinal energies, the cardinal placements come at each other in hard aspects to each other, it kind of encourages finding that balance between the different signs.
Yes. Can you say more about what you mean by the hard aspect? Because I think that's a good point, and that is true for all of the different modes, is that they are all in hard aspect to each other.
Sure, yeah. So when we look at Aries to Libra, we're talking about an opposition. They're 180 degrees across from each other. And an opposition is considered a hard aspect. When you look on a chart and you see a red line that seemingly divides the entire chart in half, that's called an opposition. It feels like they're almost at odds with each other. There can be this sort of tension between them because just like we're talking about, the modes are the same. They both have that same go, go, go
Yeah,
drive.
they both want to do.
Yeah, but then the element is like, wait a minute, why is that the way you're doing this? That doesn't make any sense to me. And it's the same with the squares. Go
I
ahead.
know. Then I was just gonna add like the element, and then the sign adds even more of like not only is the element doing it in another way that's different from me, but also that I'm trying to bring us together if I'm Libra, and then Aries is like, no, I'm trying to just get this done. I'm focusing on the self.
Yes, for sure. And at the highest expression of an Aries placement and a Libra placement, or an Aries person and a Libra person working together, they're seemingly taking the best of both types of energies
Yes.
and combining them.
Yeah. Can you speak to the square too?
Sure, yeah. So when you look at a chart and you see that like shorter red line, that's the 90 degree. It's called a square, just like in math, a square angle is a 90-degree angle. And those are also considered a hard aspect because they produce a lot of tension. Friction. That friction can be really felt both internally as well as played out externally between different people that are expressing those squaring energies.
Mm-hmm. And like squares can feel more frustrating than oppositions at times. But it's so interesting because so while they're hard aspects and we said they're red lines, I love when I look at a birth chart and see squares and oppositions because I feel like there's going to be a lot of opportunities to integrate these parts of your chart through
Mhm.
these experiences that you have in your life, you know, because otherwise, the growth and development you have in your life is going to come a lot from self-initiative, which, I mean, if you don't have to grow for your, like, and you're going to choose to challenge yourself, that can get a little hard.
Yeah, for sure. Squares and oppositions, I really love seeing them in charts too, especially in synastry charts, believe it or not, because that means these two people
Yes.
want to grow together. They can't help but kind of feel into that friction and that tension. When you have too much of, too many blue lines between things, it can seem really serene, but what can happen is it become almost docile and lazy. So the people,
Yeah.
instead of growing together, they kind of might stay stagnant. They need to initiate growth, whereas squares will initiate it for you.
Or a dead bedroom situation. like I think oppositions in synastry, I'm like, oh, there's some sexual chemistry here.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember the other day I was sending Kimber a voice message and I was talking about me and Kimber, as much as we're just friends, we have a lot of oppositions in our chart. And what I thought about was that it really helps me to integrate thinking about the other side of things, because it's literally the other side, and that tension that can be felt between oppositions. Well, what you're trying to do is build a bridge between those two sides. And what supports bridges but tension?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Um, Before we go into the other signs, can you show Debbie's comment?
Yes.
Because I love this because it's 100% true. Oppositions are actually archetypically an aspect that represents relationships. And what you can really see that in the archetypes that are connected to the cardinal sign. So with Aries and Libra, we have the fighter and the lover, and we hear that a lot in society. And then when we have Cancer and Capricorn, we have mother and father. So it's really, you'll see that as we continue talking about the other types of signs. But opposition is truly two people in relationship, or two things in a relationship. And ideally, we find a balance, not a tug of war or issue with trying to take over.
That's kind of a beautiful thing about oppositions too, because even if you have them in your natal chart, they will still tend to play out externally. So if you have your sun in let's say Aries, and you're overdoing that Aries energy, or perhaps underdoing that Aries energy, what can happen is somebody, something, some situation that embodies Libra is going to come in and enact that feeling of tension to kind of rev things up for you.
Yeah. It's just funny because Jenna is an Aries rising and I'm a Libra rising. So, yeah, we have a lot of cardinal oppositions. Okay. So we have Aries. What about Cancer? I think Cancer is interesting because we think about how Cancer wants safety, and we think about the crab and sometimes going inward. So we may not actually think of them as doers, but they're cardinal. What do you think about that, Jenna?
What I was thinking about it was in terms of as the cardinal water sign, and Cancer having to do with feelings, save for situations of dissociation, you kind of can't help but feel your feelings. Like, you instantly sort of know how you feel about something if you're clued into yourself and into your body. So if you walk into a situation and you instantly feel kind of, you might call it even intuition, you instantly feel kind of uncomfortable, that's that Cancer energy coming straight forward. It's initiating, it's cardinal, it's showing you the emotions in a very cardinal way.
Yes, it's like creating safety for you to feel or to open up, and for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Because at its highest expression, Cancer is very in touch with its feelings. It does feel its emotions. It is healing both itself and
Mhm.
others. It is honoring the emotions of self and others.
I love that.
Mm.
I think it's also the caring, like we talk about nurturing. And so while Cancer is motivated by wanting to nurture self or others, that there is still action in it. And you can still see, I was kind of thinking about, when I was thinking about Cardinal, I know Aries is the warrior and the protector, but I feel that they're all protecting something. And so they're all defending something. And so I was like, I just see that I'm kind of pulling Aries into all the signs, which I'm going to save something for a moment because I'm still letting it cook. But I just really think that with Cancer, is that it's not that you are passive or submissive. I just think that people get weird thoughts around what Cancer is. And maybe that's also just part of the patriarchy in society. But yeah, like that, it's just more, you might be motivated by something differently to get you to like stand up. And my Mars happens to be in Cancer. And I feel like when it's about kids or when it's about needing to stand up for another person, I've got you. Like I can do that. Standing up for myself, or that's gotten better as I've gotten older.
For sure. There's the work to do right there. They say where you have Mars placements, you're developing the courage to act in that arena. So good on
Yep.
you recognizing that. Debbie shared that her Venus is in Cancer, which is such a beautiful placement.
Oh,
Venus,
yes.
the, attraction, how we restore balance, love, and having it in such a watery sign that's so emotionally motivated. It's like seeing someone who is sensitive to the emotions of those around and wanting to use emotion in a way to restore balance and bring serenity.
Yep.
Hi, Millie.
That's Shanae.
Hi, Janae. I'll call you 5 different names. My Mercury is in Cancer, which I find to be kind of a tricky placement for it. I think that's because Mercury rules, one of the signs Mercury rules is right next to Cancer, which can
Yep.
be a little bit tricky. We're going to get into the switching of modalities later in the season, but my Mercury almost wants to intellectualize my emotions rather than feel them. So I know for me, that's part of my journey in this lifetime, learning to embody and really feel my emotions in the way that Cancer wants me to, rather than kind of analyze or rationalize them.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Oh,
Do we want to talk about Libra?
sure. Yeah. You want to take it away? You're kind of a Libra expert.
I'm not a Libra expert, but we have the Lover. And so I think too that this is having to do with what are we motivated by? It's about creating and initiating relationships and connection. So we can still see that. And I think I'm pulling back in the balance that you were bringing up with Aries, where it's like balance between the fighter and then potentially being a scaredy cat or like afraid to go out and take a stand for yourself. With Libra, we have the risk of over giving to keep surface level harmony, right? And like, or to make sure that everyone's needs are met. And so now there's no drama and being conflict avoidant versus making sure that my needs have space in the relationship as well.
For sure. Yeah, because at its highest, when we think about like cardinal energy as initiating and Libra being so relationship oriented, it's like initiating that relationship, but also initiating restoring balance in that relationship. And sometimes because of that focus on keeping that relationship that was initiated, Libra can kind of become a little bit quiet or passive or not say and do the things that actually would restore long-term balance. Remember, cardinal is very right now in the here and now.
Yeah. And I think in Libra, another thing that Libra likes to initiate or create is beauty and the aesthetic. And so wanting to be pleasing or graceful. And so sometimes, having difficult conversations or rocking the boat may not feel like that's creating beauty, even if it could do that in the long run. So I want to pull that in with that too.
Yeah, for sure. Libra definitely has a really beautiful energy to it. It literally is a sign of beauty, but making sure that that beauty has depth and sustainability, not just that initial beauty that Cardinal initiates.
That's so funny. It's random, but that just made me think about Libra moons and how so many Libra moons I know are amazing at decorating their homes. Like their homes are so beautiful. And just it makes sense because it's about creating beauty in a lunar way.
Yeah, for sure. Sam has my husband has a Libra moon, but his is in the 12th house and it's fighting with my Gemini moon, and he's always like, there's so many things around this house. You have so many collections of things. So shout out to
Yeah.
my poor husband.
Likes order. Yeah.
For sure.
That's so interesting because I kind of see the theme of liking things in their place or order, or that it should be this way with Cardinal, even though that does feel very fixed too. So I'm interested to talk about that next week. But yeah, I feel like there's a particularity to cardinal signs.
For sure, for sure. That actually segues really well into Capricorn, if you're
Okay.
ready to talk
You
Capricorn,
go.
because the whole idea of doing things in a particular way. Capricorn is my North Node ruler as well as my chart ruler, and I have my Capricorn Mars in my 10th house, which is an angular house, and I'm pretty sure this is why the astrology software is telling me cardinal energy is my strongest energy. And what can happen with Capricorn is it can be so good at just getting the thing done, taking that initiative, that it kind of pushes other people out of the way, intentionally or unintentionally, a lot of the times, because people are like, well, you know what, that person knows what they're doing, they're so Capricorn, they're doing it better than me, they're doing it faster than me, they seem to actually really enjoy doing it. So what can end up inadvertently happening is that Capricorn kind of stoic silence that can sometimes take place leaves room for interpretation for the person who's benefiting from that Capricorn go 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 energy, almost inadvertently taking advantage of the situation and not being as helpful or equally balanced as it could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Not to immediately go negative with Capricorn.
I mean, there's some positives there too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Capricorn has a lot of sustainability. It wants to, keep going with things. It's ready. It has that earth drive to it, but that cardinal initiation. So it's this kind of unstoppable, unbreakable force.
Yes. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that.
The mountain goat.
So, do we want to get into the oppositions, like how these signs balance each other?
Yeah. I think I loved that you brought up Cancer being the mother and Capricorn being the father. And we know that at this point in time, there's all sorts of different relationships, and Cap and mother doesn't necessarily embody just females or just women.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that there's a nurturing energy and there's kind of the go-getter energy, the protector energy. But really what's happening is nurturing involves protecting too. Just like Capricorn building all the things, taking the initiative to get that earth-based thing done is also a form of nurture. What can happen though is, as cardinal signs, they both have that drive to get things done. But as a water versus earth, they can kind of be like, well, really, that's the way you want to go about this, especially if there's any overabundance of, oh, I just need to nurture you to the point of coddling you, or I just need to nurture myself to the point of kind of like retracting into my shell and never really facing the world. And then on the other side of that, Capricorn can go to an extreme of like, well, I'm just going to work, 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 like the song says, but like have that workaholic almost
Yes.
mentality rather than feeling anything about the situation.
Right. And it's just, I love this whole opposition relationship because it kind of, what you were just saying, connects to the fourth and 10th house, which are kind of, we connect to Cancer and Capricorn, where we want to have both a balance between home life and work life. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think a lot of times at work, we hear work life balance, but it doesn't actually translate to a balanced, like a 50-50 balance between my job and my domestic environment and those priorities.
Yeah. And when work life becomes almost too demanding or too overbearing, and then when you do have time at home, sometimes we're just catching up on our chores, and that feels an awful lot like even more work.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And then I also think, can we lean into, I guess, because there's a shadow of Cancer of maybe being overindulgent or like self-indulgent about what feels good. And then Capricorn can be overindulgent, but more in like the workaholism and burning out, or just there's no time to relax or take care of myself. Um, how does, because Cancer, it's like, how do you burn out from not doing, if that's what you're doing, if you're showing up as a shadow Cancer where you're more needy and you're not able to, you need help from others, then where is the burnout really in that?
I think it comes from it's literally emotional burnout because you're so reliant on constantly looking at your emotions and constantly feeling and constantly prioritizing. Well, do I actually want to do that? Well, do I actually feel safe doing that? When we overly focus on our emotions rather than sometimes we need that earth, we need to get stuff done, even if we don't feel like doing it, we can coddle ourselves into almost this position of stagnancy out in the earth world, but all our energy is going into this mental process, this embodiment of emotions.
Yes. I love that you said that because they're all, because we talk about how one of the limits or challenges of the cardinal signs is that burnout or that follow through being difficult. And it just made the word that came to mind when you were saying that about Cancer was fatigue, because we were talking about this desire to balance or to do and or get started. And it's like, if I like basically if I don't do it, like I need to take the action or else it's not going to start or it's not going to get done. And then it kind of is like, can we share that load? Or like, as if you're going out for a sprint but it's really a marathon, then how should we be starting differently, so that we avoid the fatigue?
Mm, that's a really good question.
Because I think too, Jenna, what you were saying, it's like Cancer, if they're emotionally fatigued, or it's almost like even you can be sick of, I remember I was just in a phase of my life where I was eating just only fast food, and I was like, but I didn't feel good. I was fatigued by the way I was taking care of my body, but I also, it had been so long since I had like cooked food, and
Mhm.
like that it felt so out of reach. And it makes me think about the Capricorn who is so exhausted with work and still going, and they're like, they're burnt out, but do they see that it's like, all right, I can rest or I can relax? So it's almost like you're in this catch 22 of, I can't do this anymore, I'm exhausted, but the alternative or being able to take a break feels out of reach or so foreign because I haven't done that in a long time.
Yeah. It's again back to the balance thing, but it reminds me of this like therapy skill where they talk about like it's an emotional regulation skill and the acronym for it is please master. And they're talking about treating physical illness with the P and the L. And then they're talking about making sure you're eating, making sure you're taking any sort of medications or any ailments that you have, taking care of yourself, making sure you're sleeping, making sure you're exercising,
Mm-hmm.
hydrating. And then the mastery side of things is make sure you're doing something to completion that actually gives you that sense of mastery in life. So I think that if we don't balance our emotional and nurturing needs, the things that Cancer is bringing up, with potentially Capricorn mastery, if we lean too far into one, it can be like, well, I did all the tasks on my to-do list. I got to check all those things off, but I actually don't feel balanced right now. But did you eat today? Did you get a good night's sleep? Did you
Yeah,
prioritize anything other than these tasks?
it's a great point.
Yeah. Hmm. That's a deep one. What do you think about the squares between Capricorn Cancer opposition and Aries Libra opposition?
Like just oppositions and squares in general.
Yeah, because like when we synthesize Cancer to Capricorn and those oppositions and maybe the overabundance of one versus the other, what about when we talk about like Libra coming into the equation and providing that friction?
So I think I don't know if I want to say this. I don't know if this connects to your question, but I do want to say this.
Okay.
Something I noticed while looking at the four signs is just that I hadn't noticed before is that when we look at essential dignities, all four signs are connected to Mars and Saturn. So Mars is rules Aries, is exalted in Capricorn, is
Mhm.
in fall in Cancer, and then is in detriment in Libra. And then Saturn rules Capricorn, is exalted in Libra, is in detriment, not in detriment, in fall in Aries, and then in detriment in Cancer. So it
Mhm.
made me think like, do all of the cardinal signs hold martial Saturnian energy in a way? And it made me think, Mars is like action and wanting to do, and Saturn is like this this need for structure. Almost you can be in like a tunnel vision a little bit, and then it makes me feel like the square between the cardinal energy, because you said like they both want to do something.
Mhm.
It's the ability to, Mars and Saturn both being the malefics are both having this like there's already more head-on friction,
Mhm.
or like what are we going, who's going to win in this way, especially if you have a natal square between these two things, because it's like I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but I'm like, I was just really thinking, I was like, I just feel like, is it that's making it harder to do something about feeling exhausted, or to turn the ship around, or to change course, and then it just turns into this Saturn like we're just gonna halt, or we're gonna pause, we slow the work down because we're losing that martial steam,
Mm.
instead of finding a way to integrate the two energies together.
I really like where you're going with this. Like
I know.
it,
I was like, I gotta let it bake more.
yeah, no, but it immediately made me think of like, as much as Saturn doesn't like being in Libra, like what is ultimately going to make Libra happy? The longevity of that relationship, or the longevity of that sustained serenity. Like it just, there's so much wisdom in the fact that the malefics are deeply tied into these cardinal energies.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're so different like because Mars is faster and Saturn is slower. And so it's not about making the cardinal signs slow down. Like they wouldn't be cardinal signs. But there's just like adding in balance, or adding in boundaries, like giving yourself breaks. You could, if it's especially Capricorn, it's a long game.
Mm.
Like we have to have balance, and balance. I think that Saturn really adds in that balance and that order, which I guess order and balance are basically two in the same.
I like that you said boundaries too, because that's something that Cancer can really struggle with, like boundaries around providing nurture and care to everyone around them to the point that they're depleted for themselves. Same with Libra, not having those boundaries around relationships and slipping into codependency.
Yeah, that actually makes me think about Aries and Cancer, and how Aries struggles with boundaries, potentially with safety, or it's like, oh, this is exciting, or I care about this. But imagine if you have an Aries moon square Cancer Mars, how that might feel. Just like, okay, I want to do this thing, but there's like this balance between one loves safety
Yep.
and one needs excitement and like a risk. And so it's just, how do we make sure that both get what they want out of this?
It's interesting that you chose things that have mutual reception too.
Yeah, that was an accident.
That was an accident because I was like, damn, we're going deep with lots of concepts
Yeah.
here. But yeah, that is super interesting because, like, the key to your happiness being your moon and having all those Aryan drives to it, but then also that courage to feel your emotions and face your inner truths and really look at the situation for yourself, hold yourself
Hmm.
accountable for your emotions, not necessarily project it onto other people to take care of your emotions.
Yes.
Yeah. But then the moon's over there like, well, I can do it all on my own anyways. Yeah, that could be a lot of tension. I could see the friction of that square. Sometimes we talk about how squares can be, especially in a natal chart, experienced more internally than oppositions. So feeling that push pull in both directions, like, oh, I really want to go for this Aries that I know is going to nourish my soul and make my heart feel good, lead me to happiness. But is it too big of a risk? Is it too big of an emotional risk? Is my Mars in Cancer not quite feeling into bravery and courage? Am I just, succumbing to the fear?
That's really interesting. What would you say about a Venus? I'm gonna do not mutual reception.
Okay.
Venus in Libra,
Mhm.
square Saturn in Capricorn.
Okay. So now we're going with highly dignified placements because
Yes.
they
Yeah.
rule their sign. Yeah. So that Venus in Libra. I mean, I could see this being negatively expressed by someone who has that intense drive to work with that Saturn in Capricorn, and, find that mountain, climb that mountain, dedicate themselves 150% more than anyone else for the sake of feeling like they need to do that in order to keep their relationship alive.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone who really thinks that they're benefiting from giving more to their relationship than they actually are. And then it becomes about, okay, well, is this relationship actually benefiting you? Because you're probably climbing more mountains than you actually want to, and you're starting to feel like this really isn't for me. And you can get resentful that you have to do all this work that doesn't truly make you happy just because you can do it, just because you're the more equipped person in the partnership to do it. And that's when we can see passive aggressiveness kind of coming into play.
Yeah, I could see that. It's also just I see this with like, Libra enjoys to being around people
Mm,
and or beautiful things and creating art. And Capricorn, there's a solitude, and but Saturn, there might be a blockage around that solitude. And so it
mhm,
might be there could be that avoidance, and like leaning into being around people, but you're also sacrificing potentially the quality of relationship. And even though you're not like in solitude or alone and getting comfortable with that, since that's your great work and you want to cultivate that practice, you might be feeling alone in all these relationships that you are involved in. I don't know. That's really interesting.
I really like what you just said, because there's this like almost this like dysfunctional course correction to only have shallow relationships, because to engage that much and have, hi Sam, have tons of deep relationships would be even more exhausting. So now we're overextending ourselves into relationships that aren't truly even fulfilling, because our Saturn is so starved for alone time that we're searching for the alone time in the wrong space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think I just want to name for everyone, we're spending time on squares more because even the oppositions do have a little bit more, they can understand each other a little more than the squares, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like that's going to be a little bit more challenging. I think too it's interesting when you think about just the oppositions though, while they want the same thing, like cuz Aries and Libra are literally about relationship,
Mm-hmm.
just with self and with other, but they have different approaches and what that would look like if you have an opposition in the with those two planets, especially if they're are they super strong, are they super weak, and some, you know what I mean, Jenna?
Yeah.
And
No.
so I had a question
Mhm.
around if not planets, if cardinal signs are all about doing and starting things, do they have a hard time with relaxing? Like, what happens if the next thing to do is to not do?
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, it's almost like you need to schedule the downtime. You need to tell yourself and really make that conscious effort around, okay, it's time to break. I deserve the break. Kind of like we talk about Cancer saying, like, if you overextend yourself to other people, you actually deserve to care for yourself. Or Libra, if you deserve to have those difficult conversations. It's okay to kind of shake the boat a little bit in relationship, because we're talking about the long-term health and overall well-being of these signs.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like it's okay to take a break. I just keep thinking about the running, but it's okay to slow your pace so that you can finish the race, but it's also okay to pass the baton because I just see the cardinal signs really do speak to relationships with the other. It's like,
Yeah.
can you, if we're going, or like, or this is the way that we are going to need to do it. And I'm kind of trying to take on that. I'm going to create this balance on my own. Then what room is left for this to actually be sustainable or for
Mm-hmm.
us to scale, or to be steady?
Yeah. I think that part of it too is that cardinal energy, and again, I'm cardinal dominant, so this might be very biased. Cardinal energy is just like the best at things. So, so like when you are the warrior or you are that leader, Or go to Cancer. You are that nurturer. You're the caregiver. You're just better at it than everyone else. Or Libra, you're the shiny star on top of the Christmas tree. There's not a shinier star. There's not someone that's going to do this better. Be more aesthetic, be more serene, be more pleasing. Capricorn, again, you do the damn thing better than anyone else. To pass the baton, it can almost feel like sacrificing greatness. But yeah.
Keep going. That's great.
Well, it could feel like sacrificing greatness, but what we're trying to wrap our minds around is that like greatness also comes from ourselves being well enough, secure enough, balanced enough to actually appreciate the things that we're doing.
Excellent. So how does that not feel like a sacrifice?
I think you have to lean into the opposite sign. So like for Libra, for it to not feel like a sacrifice, it's like lean into that courage of Aries to kind of be like, well, I'm going to let this person try to take a swing at things. And maybe if it doesn't turn out quite right, we will get through that hardship. We will get through that war. We will get through that discomfort. Same with Cancer and Capricorn. If I let this person take control of my Capricorn project, you know, I'm giving myself that time to heal, that time to restore, so I can actually come back into Capricorn, build that bridge between it, have that tension on both sides so that I can show up as my best self and remember how much I matter and how much my own well-being matters too.
Yeah. I'd love to hear from people in the chat around whether you have a lot of one cardinal sign and what does that mean for you to kind of lean into the opposite sign, or if you have an opposition going on in your chart. That's really interesting. I like that, Jenna.
Debbie said she has to leave, but I know she
Hi, Debbie.
Bye, Debbie. She also mentioned that she doesn't have any kind of Capricorn energy in her chart.
And she's a Venus Cancer, and she was talking about being more attractive and attracted to people who are Capricorn because they help her get going.
And I bet Capricorn people, such as myself, find you really loving and caring with all that Cancer energy. Oh, you benefit from the Cardinal in your life. Yes.
That's so interesting.
I remember when I first met Debbie, I was like, oh my God, she's like this watery goddess. We have to get to know her more. She's just so lovely. And now I'm like, okay, there was that balance between my like heavy Capricorn placements, also probably my heavy Aries placements. I know that I have an important placement with Mercury and my IC being in Cancer, but they're not as developed. So I think having someone that had such a developed Cancer energy really was helping to build up the cardinal grand cross of energy, because we all have all of these signs in our chart, whether we have placements or not. So there is this energy that wants to work together in this kind of big square. So when you have someone come in to fill a space that's kind of like a void in your chart, it can start getting things really going for you, getting the whole thing lighting up.
And that's the thing too, though, is to like, you know, Debbie could have taken that in a shadow way of sometimes if you have the Cancer energy and you are kind of, you want to surround yourself with some Capricorn energy, and that can be really motivating, or you could just keep the Capricorn energy only projected onto them. And even if you don't have any planets in Capricorn, it's still in your chart. And you do like, we all tap into the different signs. And so it's honestly when we can say, oh, I'm a Libra rising, and so maybe I don't see Aries energy in myself. But when I'm integrating, it's that, oh, I'm around Arian or Martial people, and that inspires me to have boundaries or to be able to stand up for myself or to engage in conflict resolution. And it's that I can learn from those people, that those are the people I like to call when I'm like, I want advice, because maybe I'm not 90% of the time I'm being too nice, or like I'm giving, and it's like, I need that Martial person to tell me that. So like to make sure that we're kind of going back to the inner gold, that we're not just like surrounding ourselves and it's like, oh, well, they can do that, but I can't. And it's like we should be allowing ourselves to be inspired or to learn from the people that we're around.
And being mindful that not everyone is the same as us. And I don't think you and I do this, but I'm thinking of, I'm just going to say it, my mom and my brother. My mom is very Cancer dominant, and my brother is very Capricorn, and she handed her business down to him. And some of the cutthroat decisions that he made as a business owner were so shocking to her. And I think it was that opposition. She was saying, this is how I run my business. It's very loving. A lot of the people that she's trained say you're like a mother to me, like all of this really Cancerian, maternal, nurturing energy. And for my brother to come in and seemingly seem very cold hearted and be like, we're doing this way, we're changing these things around. And it kind of, she was very shocked by that because it just wasn't the way she did things. But the idea is that, no, you've seen that he is capable. Now, this is the ways in which he is capable. He's not going to run this like a Cancer dominant boss. He's going to run this like a Capricorn dominant boss.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Both valid approaches. However, we just need to be sensitive to not everyone's going to do things the same way as us.
Right. And I think it's also if they were working, if it wasn't handing the business and they were working together, that collaboration is a great opportunity for creativity with cardinal signs, but there's also, you know, with creativity, there is friction. And so I think just being open to that there, like you said, too many cooks in the kitchen situation of like, let's figure this out. That doesn't mean one cook has to get out. It's just,
right.
How can we figure out how to do this?
Yeah, the too many cooks in the kitchen was such a good analogy for this, because when we talk about the modes, we're talking about the same part of the cycle. We're talking about initiation right now. So everyone has the same goal to initiate. Just like if we had 10 cooks trying to bake a cake, they all have the same goal. But if they're all going at it in a kind of different way, or, you know, one's taking a more fiery approach, one's, you know, doing something different in a more airy way, it's like, what are you doing? We're trying to get where we're going, but you're doing it wrong. And it's like, no, we're not doing it wrong. We all have different skills, ways of approaching this same task.
Which is so funny because this image in my head of I'm just thinking of a really busy fine dining restaurant where there's multiple chefs and everyone's yelling because we have to get these plates out. And I see all four cardinal signs are represented in this, but there it can feel like chaotic and hot energy, but there's clearly an order and a structure. And then there's teamwork and collaboration. And then we're also creating something that is nourishing to our bodies. And so I just was like, oh, this is so like that. It's like we can figure out how to do that where there needs to be a system in place.
Yeah. And if you have all four energies, it doesn't have to be four different people. It could be someone that strongly represents Cancer and Libra, and then an additional person that represents Capricorn, and maybe a third that represents Aries. It's like you have all four corners of the cardinal cross activated. And we talk about how the beauty of having a grand cross in general is that once you activate one, they all kind of start to spiral.
Yes.
So as long as you have those little kind of workers in place, it's going to start moving.
It's almost like an inside out kitchen, like, you know, in your head, when you're able to get it working. Otherwise it can just feel like the chefs are quitting.
Yeah. Chefs are quitting. Everything's shutting down.
I love that you brought up Grand Cross because that means that all four signs are activated. And so there's, you know, we have 4 squares and 2 oppositions and they can be locked. And so with cardinal energy, if the Grand Cross isn't unlocked, it can feel like I'm not moving. I want to move, I want to do, but we are literally in a deadlock of what can I do? What am I going to do next? And so we're able to move forward without having one cardinal sign like dragging the rest of us, because that won't be good. And then you're more likely to do the opposite and in a more extreme pendulum swing.
Yeah. I find for myself that when I get the drive to do something, I'll get a good idea. I'll be like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'll start imagining it. I'll start going places with it, seeing how it can be possible. And then something comes in my way where I'm like, oh, I'm hyper examining the fact that I'm feeling, is this anxiety or is this excitement? So I almost get like locked down in the Cancer side of it. I can't start because I'm like, is this an intuitive message or is this just excitement? Let me stare at my
Ooh.
emotions. Yeah. Instead of making the jump to either Aries or Capricorn or even Libra, like what is the next step? What is the next thing, the next right step to keep this balance, to keep me moving? Yeah.
We didn't talk about Aries Capricorn as a square, and something that was interesting to me is, Aries is ruled by Mars and it is exalted in Capricorn. Um, and Aries and Capricorn, while it is a square, Aries being the fighter, I could see Capricorn being the general or being able to have the plan, that like the steadiness to be able to win the war or like get up that mountain. That square just as challenging as the other squares? Or
I
could
mean,
that square kind of lean into my way or the highway situation?
well, I think when the Aries doesn't listen to the Capricorn, did you watch Game of Thrones?
Yes.
So I'm thinking of Khaleesi. And she's very Aries. She's like, we're going to free everybody. Okay, now I'm going to let you do this contract for a year. Okay, now I'm going to do this. And kind of the older generals, the Capricorns are like, this is not going to go well. This is not going to go well. Like, you need to pause and not just say yes
Mm-hmm.
to people or not just say no to people. You have to think before you actually hit go. There's no ready set. So whether she listens to these people or not, it's a tricky balance, because if all of a sudden Aries starts being overly Capricorn or leading too much into Capricorn, it can almost
Mm-hmm.
feel like a stall out. It can be very confusing.
Because that's the, Capricorn strategy. And then we can potentially have impulsiveness. And even if it works out, then yeah, that could be tension within you. Just what do I do? Or you made a long plan and you were doing it, and then you're like, screw this, we're gonna do this.
And then Capricorn's like, why did I climb 80% of this mountain then? Like, that
Mm-hmm.
was like, really? You want me to just go to the bottom of a new mountain and start? Like, Capricorn feeling unfulfilled, while Aries is fulfilling itself in kind of a shadowy way with impulsivity.
Yeah. Or it could get sidetracked potentially with on the wrong, like we're trying to win the war, not every single battle.
Yeah, bigger picture versus that the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
Aries is very the heat of the moment.
Which maybe also connects to the fact that those are the Mars and Saturn of the group
Mhm.
in full, like they're in direct conflict with each other versus when we pull in Libra and Cancer, which are
Mhm.
more watery planets.
Yeah, more emotional, more
Mm-hmm.
thinking about things.
More
Yeah.
like relational.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because even though Saturn is one of the modern rulers, it's the traditional ruler, but it's in modern astrology, one of the rulers of Aquarius, it's still bringing the earth element into it. It's still bringing that structure. It's staying true to its cardinal earth energy of Capricorn.
Yeah. Just because we ended our first season with Chiron in series, and I know Camille did mention that she has a Chiron in Cancer, I'd love your take on Chiron as the Chiron expert in the cardinal signs, and we can use
Mm.
Cancer specifically. But since there's a wound there, um, what do you think?
Maybe it is like a wound around initiating within that element. So, like, I'm not, Camille, this might be you, this might not be you. You totally don't have to share. But if we are thinking of that wounding in Cancer, it's like, is it even safe for me to touch my emotions? Is it even safe for me to go there? And I'm not even
Mm-hmm.
talking about express them. I'm talking about look at them inside of ourselves. Does it feel like such a space that if we even go there, we might drown? We might fall in and it become completely, unapproachable, unsurvivable in a way. But then when we think of, like, right now, Chiron is in Aries, it's finishing up its final weeks now. June 19th, it's going to ingress into Taurus. It's finishing up in Aries, and that like wounding around, how do I initiate? How do I fight? And we're seeing it all over the world, like, and it's coming out in over expressions as well as under expressions of this Aryan energy. save for the fact that there's a lot more going on in Aries right now than just Chiron. But people like taking that action and being way too crazy about it and kind of being way too in your face, and then feeling like they're the one being wounded by what they did. It can be a little bit tricky and confusing to kind of address that. Like, well, which parts of this are the actual Chiron wound, and which part of this is you actually reactivating it for yourself, but feeling like it's somebody else doing it.
I like that.
I could see it in Libra too, as like the person who in relationship is struggling to find it in themselves where they need to be accountable to the relationship problems. Because, you know, staying quiet about things to keep the peace, that's not good. And if things blow up in your face, you weren't actually the martyr for keeping quiet about those things. Like, it can be a very gentle process to pull people through some of the more shadowy sides of Chiron and Libra. Because to even engage in relationship with a Chiron and Libra is a great feat. Sorry.
A great feat.
Well, I just mean, like, I don't want to discount the fact that Chiron and Libra has wounding in the realm of relationships.
Yes.
Could even bravely step forward and say yes to partnerships of any kind. It doesn't have to be romantic. It's almost as if they've already taken a giant step, but we're still just at the starting line.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, what am I bringing into this? So it can be really hard to not project outward onto the situation. If things were to fall apart or there was to be some sort of tension, it can be very hard to see what parts of this are actually my doing, even when it's really hard to admit, oh yeah, that wasn't in the best interest of the relationship. And that did actually fester into more of a wound for both of us.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's interesting too, because wounds, when we think like they're not active necessarily, like it's not a movement thing, and so they can be slow to heal and work from. And in that cardinal energy, like that, there can just be tension and frustration of, what do you mean? I just want to get out of this.
Yeah. Camille's saying that she's always been really in tune with her emotions and expressive, but early on in childhood, she was told she was too sensitive, so learned it was bad. Yeah. That's kind of the other extreme of the wound, where it's like you're so in touch with it that people start being like, this is wrong. This is wrong. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And it's in her 5th house. So that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Especially playing out in childhood. And like, you were trying to engage in it. And 5th house is about finding your right audience. People say like, oh, 5th house Leo, that's so performative. You're just dramatic. And it's like, no, you're just looking for the right people to see what you are here to actually say or work on. So it's really painful when your right audience actually isn't the one person who's supposed to be caring most about your emotions, especially as a little kid.
Yeah.
Not to go super deep right at the end. Oh. Did you want to?
Else? Oh, no, you go.
I was going to say, do you want to say anything else about Chiron? No.
I just thought, I was literally thinking, just because since Camille mentioned Chiron and Cancer, I was just like, okay, I want to talk through that. And I did you see Sam's comment about Libra moon, Libra rising?
I was thinking about Sam when I was saying scheduling the breaks, because there's so many times when we own businesses together that he'll be like, and now we deserve a break. And I'm like, what? Why don't we just get everything done? And he's like, you're already slowing down and spacey and like not focused. So like, and he says it in a very, yeah, but it's so true. I'm like, you're my manager because I don't know how to take a break. So
do you, are you both cardinal dominant?
I'm going to have to look for him, but we might be. Yeah, because his strongest planet, I'm pretty sure, is in Capricorn, and then he's got the double Libras.
That's so interesting.
Ugh. I love that Sam's saying that he's learned this from working a 16-hour day, and right now he's working like he is stacked to the brim today at his massage business. So have you learned? No, I'm just kidding, Sam. I'm just
That's
teasing.
actually so that is interesting. I think that's maybe my last point is that my cardinal energy, it's my second most dominant energy, but it is I have a ninth house Cancer Mars and I have a third house Uranus Neptune and Capricorn. And when Sam said that about 16-hour work days, I'm like, my longest work days or when I had a really bad work-life balance, I was a teacher or an assistant principal or whenever I'm doing something that has to do with writing. And so it's like, oh, that also just seeing where the cardinal energy is in your houses can also speak to where my being able to take breaks, because I have no problem taking breaks in other jobs or other things. And I'm like, but when it's involving kids or teaching, I struggle and it's really hard for me to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that'd be really cool for everyone to kind of check out in their chart. Where is the cardinal energy? And if you see that playing a role.
That's such a great question. That's homework, everyone.
Yeah, sorry. Which kind of brings us so we're near the end of our episode. Do you have anything else you want to say, Jenna, before we close?
Nope. I feel like we did a great job.
Okay, so next week we are going to be diving into fixed energy, fixed signs. So Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio.
Yes, we're talking about the urge to endure.
Yes, me. Here you go. For better or worse, we will be talking about all the things like we did today. Yeah.
And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And we will see you next Monday.
Bye.
Bye.